So it is both a privilege and a timely responsibility to speak on a topic that sits at the nexus of Africa's most urgent developmental priorities: mobility, justice, and the future. In this era, defined by the fourth industrial revolution, our urban centers are becoming living laboratories where innovation can either entrench inequality or unlock inclusion. As African cities grapple with rising populations, congested infrastructure, and fragmented transport ecosystems, a new path must be kept, one grounded in equity, sustainability, and Afrocentric innovation. Today, colleagues, I offer a vision: smart mobility as a foundational pillar in the creation of just cities, cities that serve the many, not just the few. Start with the state of mobility in Africa. Urbanization is both a triumph and a challenge. With over 600 million people expected to live in Africa's urban centers by 2030, our mobility systems must evolve or risk becoming barriers to economic participation, social inclusion, and climate resilience. Public transport systems are under-resourced and fragmented. Informal networks such as minibus taxis, border borders, and tuk-tuks dominate mobility in most cities, yet they remain unregulated, unsafe, and data invisible. The African Development Bank reports that transport-related inefficiencies cost our economies up to 5% of GDP. More than that, mobility poverty continues to lock out millions, particularly women, youth, and persons with disabilities, from accessing jobs, education, and healthcare. This is not simply a transport issue, it is a human rights issue. Learning from the global examples tailored for African realities, let us briefly examine global models in order to contextualize. Bogota's Transmilenio shows how efficient bus-based systems can reduce emissions and democratize access. The Netherlands demonstrates the transformative impact of non-motorized mobility through bike infrastructure. But Africa is different. Our cities are polycentric, our informal economies are vast, and our cultural landscapes unique. Thus, our solutions must be African in design, data-driven in execution, and justice-oriented in purpose. Embracing the fourth industrial revolution, data, telematics, and artificial intelligence. At the heart of smart mobility is technology, telematics, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things devices, which are enabling real-time route optimization, predictive maintenance, and dynamic pricing models. Smart ticketing platforms are unifying multimodal trips. Digital twins and urban simulation models are allowing planners to test interventions before implementation. Today in Europe and in the UAE, young people are taught how to drive in a simulated environment through an AI technique called driving metaverse. This deals with a neurological aspect of our being. It deals with human behavior. Before you are allowed to drive in the UAE, or all other parts of the UAE, especially the guys that drive your Ubers and all of that, you have to produce a report on human behavior. It is proven that such deals with road fatalities and all of that. Europe has also adapted to that example. South Africa is a case, has amended the National Road Traffic Act. And in those amendments, one of the important things that have been included and which should be standardized is to deal with driver behavior. So the drivers of the future in this country may not necessarily need to be driving cars embedded with the learners and the bed. So they will have to know, because they will have to use through the metaverse. They will have to at least be put in a virtual reality environment. There will have to be telematics that test their conduct, that test their state of mind. It is proven through many other neurological sciences that some of the incidents that happen, they happen because a person's mind just shut off while they are busy driving. What do you think happens to you when you are behind them? You become part of the ref stairs. They hit you from behind. And this poor person, the mind blocked. but it's important. But we must also introduce things like this into the ecosystem of driving in the country. When they go to renew their PDP permits, part of what must come with that as part of the standardization of K53 must be them also being able to be tested for the behavior on the road, so that we can isolate behavior as an aspect that contributes to accidents. Remember, even holding your phone when you speak, when you drive, it's part of that human behavior trait that is unwanted. That is why you are given a ticket quickly. At least the traffic cop who knows you or goes to church with you or have heard of you might just say, please stop it. Don't try. But this new thing that we are doing, and if it is also implemented in a traffic ecosystem as part of artificial intelligence, part of what it will do is that it will also eliminate and isolate unethical conduct by officers. Because even testing will have to take place at a smart yard. These young ones will have to drive cars that are augmented. We'll have to sit there like we are in Mansole and watch from the screen. I know your mother from church. No, we're all watching. The new frame would have to allow the kids to also do eye testing by themselves. The only medical thing that we are tested for in South Africa today, when you go to a DLTC, is your eyes. Who said that came out cause an accident? Only your eyes. So those that initially crafted K53 agreed that we just want them to see the road. No, man. But how you behave on the road is also very important. Yeah. You could be eating a lot of carrots, but your conduct might be wrong on the road. That is why this new form of testing driver behavior are very important. The insertion of hazard testing as part of K53 is a very important step by the country. This was issued last year in December, but I'm sure many of us, because of what our learner says and because we don't want PDPs, I'm sure we did not even read those sections. If we find time, please let us read the relevant sections of the amendment. It's called the National Road Traffic Amendment Act. It's very important. You're going to have grandkids very soon. They are going to be looking for learners' licenses, and there are going to be new things that you must pay for with your pension money. So it's very important that you go and look for these things. But just to go back to the topic for today, I was talking about the telematics, AI, and Internet of Things devices that are enabling real-time route optimization, predictive maintenance, and dynamic pricing models. Smart ticketing platforms are unifying multimodal trips. Digital twins, which is what I was talking about now, on AI driving metaverse, and urban simulation models, because that happens in a simulated environment. You go there, you get into a simulator. Many of you who grew up here in Pretoria, Botswana, and today would have known. Back in the days, even those that came from my home province of Limpopo, coming to Pretoria, going to the carousel and riding on a simulator was a very big thing. Even our parents, it's just that not some of you might not hear my mother tongue, which is Pedi. Our mothers will simply say in speak, we don't have a simulator. And that would excite us. Unbeknown to us that this could become instruments of the future that are also used to actually test human behavior in a driving setting. So let me share with you another South African case, the Clever Mover program. Spearheaded by the Gauteng Management Agency and the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport, has emerged as a practical blueprint for transport equity. Far from being a technological intervention alone, Clever Mover is a fair support initiative that centers human dignity, access, and affordability. It provides qualifying low-income households earning under 350,000 per annum, as well as students, pensioners, and SASSA recipients with a 50% fare reduction on return trip, weekly, and monthly Gauteng tickets. This was launched by the ABC just 2 weeks back here in Gauteng, by the way. The outcome has been transformative. In communities such as Soshanguve and Mamelodi, daily life is improving. A mother gets to a workplace in Rosebank 45 minutes faster. gaining valuable time with their children. A university student no longer misses lectures due to prohibitive transport costs. Pensioners and the elderly access medical facilities with renewed ease, and students can attend tutorials without sacrificing basic needs. Clever Mover exemplifies how targeted subsidies combined with a justice-oriented framework can deliver immediate, tangible outcomes. By lowering the cost of participation in economic and social life, the program reinstates the principle that public infrastructure must serve everyone, not just the privileged. It operates in tandem with Gauteng's broader Smart Mobility 2030 strategy, which is digitizing transit services, expanding low-emission vehicle infrastructure, and building integrated hubs for multimodal connectivity. As MEC Kidiboni Dialetabela aptly notes, public transport must serve all people, not just the privileged few. Clever Mover is not just cheaper fares, but a blueprint for inclusive, integrated, and intelligent transport system. This initiative is not merely a regional success, it offers a continental vision. One where African innovation meets urban justice. One where progress is measured not in kilometers traveled, but in lives uplifted. Policy imperative and building legal frameworks for just mobility. Technology must be matched by governance. Our integrated transport master plans must evolve into instruments of inclusion, climate action, and spatial justice. We need legal recognition of informal transport operators with clear rights and responsibilities, gender-sensitive urban planning and safety audits, climate-aligned public procurement to promote electrified fleets and green infrastructure. Gauteng's GGT 2030 strategy offers a bold example, committing to a 40% electric bus fleet, transit-oriented development hubs, and 300,000 new transport-adjacent jobs by 2030. This is how infrastructure meets justice. African cities have long inherited colonial spatial designs that prioritize the car, segregate communities, and undervalue indigenous wisdom. A just mobility future demands a reimagining of these foundations. Urban mobility must embrace Afrocentric design principles rooted in accessibility, density, and sustainability. Recognize indigenous knowledge systems such as Ethiopia's water smart land use models. Center the voice of women, informal traders, and disabled persons. This is not only a technical revolution, it is a cultural and ethical one. The future of mobility is not just about getting from one place to another. It's about economic transformation. The shift toward electric vehicles, smart systems, and green logistics will reconfigure job markets. By 2035, over 70% of transport jobs globally will require digital proficiency. Rwanda is already leading with e-motorbike subsidies and vocational training. South Africa's Access Gauteng program is piloting apprenticeship in EV maintenance, which is electric vehicles, and smart infrastructure, empowering youth to become drivers of, not casualties of change. Data for equity from insights to action. Data is power, but only if it serves equity. Digital platforms such as Nairobi's digital Mutatus offer real-time transit maps for previously invisible routes, while feeding urban policy with evidence-based insights. Researchers at the University of Cape Town are modeling demand-responsive transit services using AI, with early pilots showing a 12% gain in fuel efficiency. Scaled continent-wide, this could revolutionize operations and emissions management. Rural-urban mobility, bridging the development divide. Justice does not stop at the city edge. Only 34% of rural Africans live within 2 kilometers of a weatherproof road. This mobility gap perpetuates inequality in education, healthcare, and trade. Kenya's Lapset corridor is a bold counterexample connecting remote regions via a multimodal corridor of roads, rail, and ports. It is proof that integrated transport planning must be national, not just municipal. Academics like Adibayo remind us that African cities must reject Eurocentric blueprints and center localized, context-driven design. In the words of Professor Edgar Peters, Urban Africa is not just catching up to the north, it is innovating from below. From climate-resilient STEM water infrastructure in Addis Ababa to drone-based medical deliveries in Rwanda, Africa is already scripting its own smart mobility narrative. Emerging African cities are increasingly piloting smart infrastructure, including automated parking systems that reduce congestions and emissions. In Kigali, Rwanda, intelligent parking meters and mobile-based reservation systems are helping optimize urban space use and revenue collection. These systems can also integrate with AI traffic surveillance to enhance compliance and reduce road conflict. Artificial intelligence is not only improving route optimization, but also enforcing traffic laws more fairly. AI-enabled speed cameras and facial recognition at intersections are minimizing biased enforcement. Meanwhile, cities like Addis Ababa are leveraging AI to simulate traffic flows and plan future corridors with unmatched precision. Non-motorized transport and human-centric design. Mobility justice is incomplete without safe, inclusive, non-motorized transport. Cities like Dakar and Dar es Salaam are expanding cycling lanes and pedestrian zones. Non-motorized transport not only supports climate goals, but also recognize the mobility needs of youth, women, and the elderly groups, disproportionately reliant on walking. Sustainable mobility must be enshrined in law. South Africa's National Land Transport Act and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights affirm access to mobility as a socio-economic right. Governments must legislate inclusive urban design, subsidize vulnerable groups, and harmonize national and municipal regulations to ensure mobility justice. Mobility is not just functional, it is deeply philosophical. The right to the city includes the right to move within it. This mobility term in urban theory sees movement as a proxy for freedom, equity, and personhood. Just cities ensure that all residents, regardless of class, gender, or ability, are visible, valued, and mobile. In Dakar, Senegal, the BRT project, supported by the World Bank, integrates solar-powered buses, contactless payment, and women-centric design principles, including safe transit zones. Meanwhile, Kigali has launched a smart city blueprint involving drones, smart poles, and app-based bike sharing. These cities remind us that African leadership in mobility is already underway. It simply requires scale, support, and storytelling. Well, we've got an opportunity to tell the story about our own Reimagining. We've got Reimagining in Johannesburg. It's already working. I'm sure it looks like every city has got its own name. I don't know what they call themselves here in Joburg. I'm sure they've got in Swan. I'm sure they've got another name. You see, our Arifikile, I'm sure in Rustenburg they must be having another Arifikile. So, but all of them, you know, this you can see even with the excitement, they are all coming up with names that actually resonate and talks to their own cultures. Gauteng's growing Gauteng Together 2030 GGT 2030 strategy represent a transformative vision for inclusive growth, spatial justice, and climate consciousness urban planning. At its heart is the Smart Mobility 2030 blueprint, which aims to re-engineer Gauteng into a continental logistics and transport hub. The strategy supports electric fleet adoption, digital ticketing systems, and transit-oriented development, all while enabling township economies and reducing carbon emissions. See, I was one day just making a joke with a friend about this whole theme of carbon tax. It was when Comrade Edna passed on, and she was still Minister of Environment, so she will always, she was an advocate of the carbon tax and ultimately ensured that it is enacted. One day when she was joking with us, she made us realize that actually carbon in our language means a simple thing, mushi. So now I said to a friend, you know what it means when we say we're dealing with carbon reduction? He was asking, no, it's very simple. We just need to get units that can basically weigh the amount of carbon that is being emitted out there. And based on that, say, okay, if you put this, if you retrofit your electricity, if you do this kind of things here in UNISA, if you were a plant that also emits. This is how much you'll be saving. And we then take that saving back into the economy. But we call it with a very serious language. We even say it's CO2. So now, because our people are so scared, they think CO2 is something strange. It's just carbon dioxide. But now even just CO2, we think we're so smart. Professors were even scared to ask, hey, what did you say? Hey, really? Hey, this sounds like serious science. So sometimes we need to also simplify these abstract terms, like carbon emissions, and teach our people. Because UNISA, here, you've got the Week of Innovations. When you come back next year, you must also talk about how you have simplified an innovation of integrated transport and allowed ordinary people of Winterfell to benefit from participating in that kind of invention. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. You never start. But in your plaque. In your plaque. In your plaque. As my plaque, you can't change any economy. You must just go in and say innovations are also about making sure that the impossible become possible. Just to drift away from transport, a simple question that UNISA is a center of innovation, or as people who are having an innovation, what are you doing with illegal spaza shops, or kids eating meats that otherwise don't conform to our standards of food safety, to our standards of food quality? We are worried about young people who do not have jobs. Why are we not creating a brigade, writing a script, short learning programs as UNISA on food quality, making sure that such standards could be applicated in our own informal settings, at taxi ranks and all of that. Charge a fee for doing that. And that fee is the one that ultimately pays for the jobs that are created to perform that kind of an activity. We look at hygiene and leave it and think that it's something else. But yet in our homes, we are washing dishes. We use all these food products. All of us here, whether we are vegetarians or not, but we have to interact with something for energy. I'm sure, one of the major activities up to so far was that after you've listened to everything, you needed to eat. You can recharge. We've left that space alone. It is being occupied by people who are doing illegal things. We, in the centers of academia, must be the ones that come up with these solutions. We must innovate those. Nothing stops UNISA from coming up with a short learning program that effectively addresses that. Partnering with QCTOs, partnering with the Council for Higher Education, and offering those to our gogos who sell at the taxi ranks. Nothing stops you from doing that. Design something here in QF level 1. And then, nice proposal. No, NQF level 1 takes you from standard 8, whatever, if they did standard 8 back in the days, which is now called grade 10. Then from this you can progress up until you get to NQF level 4. This will be your metric, but specialized in your own field. She feels good, she feels happy. That's why the CETAs are established. They are established to be able to intervene them. But without universities coming up with modern research and innovations, the CETAs will not be able to deliver courses that, one, respond to the future of work, two, are also market resilient. Don't just have to study, people don't just have to study today. They must study courses that are also responsive to their daily lives. So I just felt that Prof must put that forward as a challenge, so that if we're invited here next time, we can also be able to have a matrix and say, let's check, what did we do from the last time? UNISA should be coming and inviting us because it also wants to celebrate an innovation that it has packaged, executed, and busy maintaining. So universities of the future must be about it. Universities must also guard their role in society. Universities must be centers of what government implements as policy. When government, so our own government must say, but these are public universities. We must be taking this to UNISA to incubate. So that you don't just become a hub of NSFAS for community. If you check, all our public universities, their major contributor is NSFAS. Why? Because either we are participating in the spin-off that comes with that NSFAS or other things there, or universities are using the NSFAS kit for sustainability. It doesn't have to be that. Universities must be centers of research and development. That's my challenge to you. So just as we proceed nationally, the Gauteng, the GGT 2030 aligns with the South African Green Transport Strategy 2018 to 2050, which outlines the country's pathway to a low-carbon, climate-resilient transport sector. Key targets include expanding the use of non-motorized transport, improving intermodal public transit, investing in electric vehicle infrastructure, and advancing biofuel use in flight logistics. These interventions are designed not only to cut greenhouse gas emissions, but also to boost job creation and address historic inequalities in access to transport. Let's now talk about our assumption of the G20 presidency. As South Africa prepares to host the G20 summit in 2025, it stands at a pivotal moment to lead global dialogue on sustainable and equitable transport systems. The G20 2025's theme, Solidarity, Equality, Sustainability, mirrors the aspiration embedded in the Gauteng, in the GGT 2030 and the National Green Transport Strategy, showcasing South Africa's commitment to climate-aligned urban mobility will position the country as a thought leader for the global south. From township-focused electric bus pilots to integrated mobility platforms and smart freight corridors, South Africa offers actionable models for a just transition in transport. The summit offers an unparalleled platform to push for greater climate financing, multilateral infrastructure investment, and global cooperation on transport justice. At the G20, South Africa's message will be clear. The green transition must not only be clean, it must also be just, inclusive, and Afrocentric. So, conclusion and call to action: designing our just cities. Colleagues, what we choose today will define generations. Smart mobility is not an end but a vehicle towards dignity, opportunity, and shared prosperity. Let us imagine cities where a girl in Gqeberha can safely ride a climate-friendly bus to school, where a disabled artisan in Accra navigates the market without obstruction, where technology is not elite but everyday. Let us invest not only in infrastructure but in justice. Let us program not only AI systems but human-centered values. Let us build not only cities but just cities. Thank you very much.